Try thinking about something as an intellectual. Your intellectual life will not be lived in the books you have read. What do I mean by this? I mean that your intellectual life is not lived in the sense that its activity plays out through the books that you read. Its activity plays out specifically in discourse, in communication from one human being to another human being. Discourse, in order to be successful, in order to be meaningful, must abide by rational and logical standards. It must follow this procedure, these rules, this path, if it wants to be serious. So while the intellectual thinks that they have great need of books, and we do, don't get me wrong, we do, but we also have a great need of skill in discourse, which translates over to skill in argumentation and skill in communication. These are the skills that intellectuals need to try to develop more than anything else, specifically argumentation. Argumentation is what we are going to be engaged in when we take the knowledge that we have learned in books, we take the ideas we have learned in books, and we try to communicate those in the world with other humans. We will be engaged in a process of argumentation. And so we have great need of knowing how to argue. We have great need of knowing how arguments are formed, how arguments are refuted. We have great need of knowing how logic works in this sense. So our intellectual lives are played out, and the practical function of them moves along the lines of communication, of discourse. And so a philosophical life, apart from it being one of the solitude and isolation of actually reading literature, comprehending and absorbing literature, is really played out in discourse and communication. Even if we are writing papers, writing books, writing essays, we're either doing this in isolation, or we are doing this in a form where our ideas have to be defended and our ideas are engaged. And so this act, this skill of argumentation is so crucial. If we don't have this skill of argumentation, our philosophical and intellectual life is going to function by referencing and characterizing the literature we have read in an authoritarian fashion, meaning we will be talking about logic instead of doing logic. We will be talking about philosophy instead of doing philosophy. You see the difference. It's quite a difference, and this difference greatly matters. What we need to be able to obtain skill in, what intellectuals should be skilled in, is knowing how to engage in reason, not merely talking about reason, but actually engaged in the process and act of reason. If we can't do this, if we lack this skill of rationality, of argumentation, of communicative rationality, then we are going to be limited as intellectuals. Our intellectual life will be restricted, and our ability to communicate important ideas, to refute error, to defend truth in the public sphere will be limited, and we will function as intellectuals that are constantly giving history lessons, are constantly giving an outline of particular systems or beliefs without actually reasoning, thinking, providing evidence, supporting those beliefs. We will end up dismissing error instead of refuting error. This is not the kind of intellectual you want to be. This is the kind of intellectual that I have met over and over again in my life. And this is the shallow, superficial intellectual who is actually lacking in rational substance. Do not be an intellectual that's lacking in rational substance. You become authoritarian when that happens. You become arrogant when that happens. You become dismissive when that happens, because again, it's talking about logic, it's not doing logic. It's talking about reason, it's not doing reason. So these type of intellectuals, when they come across arguments that disagree with what they believe, they just dismiss these arguments because they don't have the skill to engage them. They don't have the capacity to refute these arguments. Do not be that kind of intellectual. Learn how to reason. Learn how to defend your positions you believe are accurate, and learn how to refute positions that are erroneous. This matters, and intellectuals that learn this, that become disciplined in this way, they do a service in the world because they are not merely engaged in the process of articulating a narrative. They are engaged in the process of defending truth and refuting error.